Trump was also asked about how his tariff policies might impact prices for American consumers.
Can you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow. But I can say that if you look at just pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had a lot of tariffs on a lot of different countries, but in particular China. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and we had no inflation.
Trump is like, guaranteed? I can't guarantee anything, especially my vow that tariffs don't harm consumers. What do you think this is, a blatantly dishonest campaign? But there is a reason he pivoted to deceptively claiming he had tons of tariffs on China.
I don't see him making any blanket changes. Here's why. The economy is doing very well. It's why he also answered to Kristen Welker, no, he's not going to look to get rid of Jay Powell. That could change if suddenly things were different in the economy, but the economy is doing very well. He also said that before COVID, he presided over the greatest economy ever. He didn't. He inherited Barack Obama's very strong economy, and that was a good thing. What came out of COVID is we faced extraordinary inflation, as did the rest of the world, and we had a very strong economic recovery.
As usual, Republican leadership inherits a good economy from Democrats after claiming it sucks, only to then celebrate and take credit for it. But supporters really should be reminded as many times as he guaranteed that tariffs are paid by importing countries with no impact on American consumers, they should hear about it.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff. And it's my favorite word. It needs a public relations.
Won't it be more expensive? If you
No, it'll be, no, it won't be. It'll be great. It'll be unbelievable.
A tariff is a tax on a foreign country. That's the way it is, whether you like it or not. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's a tax on us. No. It's a tax on a foreign country. It's a tax on a country that's ripping us off and stealing our jobs.
It's not a tax on the middle class. It's a tax on another country. If you look at McKinley, who was actually a great president, he made the country rich. It's probably the richest we ever were, relatively.
You know, we used to be an all-tariff country in the 1890s, 1880s, 1890s, early 1900s, all tariffs. That was when our country was the richest it ever was. It was never rich like that. Now they're going to have to pay for it. And they'll have to pay, and they'll pay hundreds of billions of dollars in pretty stiff tariffs.
And he taxed them. It was called a tariff. And it's not a tax on people.
So we'll take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we're going to make our country so strong and so rich, it will never be so rich. It was so rich that they had to set up a commission, the Great Tariff Commission of like 1887. It had one function: what to do with all the money.
You can do it as a money-making instrument, or you can do it as something to get the companies. Now, if you want the companies to come in, the tariff has to be a lot higher than 10%, because 10% is not enough. They're not going to do it for 10. But you make a 50% tariff, they're going to come in.
I'm going to charge every bottle of wine and champagne that you send into our country. I'm going to charge you a tariff of 100% on every bottle. And it's a tax that doesn't affect our country.
It's weird how his confidence in tariffs not costing American consumers anything vanished after he won the election. It's almost like he lied to gullible people who were more focused on the divisive identity politics that he sold them on rather than his flawed promises. It's even got like-minded politicians in Canada preparing for his empty promises.
As I mentioned to the Prime Minister, the rest of the premiers, we need to be ready. We need to be ready to fight. This fight is coming 100% on January the 20th or January 21st. We don't know what extent this fight's going to go to, but we need to line up everything that we're going to tariff and make sure that the tariff, the money that's coming from these tariffs, don't go into a federal bank account sitting there somewhere. It needs to be immediately distributed right across the province equally, and we'll be able to support the companies, the factories, the workers. We need to be prepared. We need to stand as a country. We need to stand united as Canadians and work hand in hand and shoulder to shoulder with our colleagues across the country. and we're ready to do it. We'll use every tool in our toolbox to fight back. We can't sit back and roll over. We just won't as a country. We never have. We will go to the full extent, depending on how far this goes. We will go to the extent of cutting off their energy, going down to Michigan, going down to New York State, and over to Wisconsin. I don't want this to happen, but my number one job is to protect Ontarians and Canadians as a whole.
Doug Ford was pretty clear about whether or not Trump's potential plan to use the threat of tariffs as a tool to force other countries to bend to his will would work. It's pretty clear that only Americans don't know how much we rely on the rest of the world to function. CNN pointed out just a few examples. The Peterson Institute analysis found that consumers will face higher costs for imported goods, including electrical devices, toys, and sporting goods. And businesses will be subject to new taxes on import transportation equipment, chemicals, and other items. Toys and footwear are particularly exposed to Trump's tariff threats. A staggering 99% of shoes sold in the United States are imported. More than half, 56% of shoes sold in the United States are made in China. The United States is also relying on China for toys and sporting equipment, including items such as footballs, soccer balls, and baseballs. The United States gets 75% of its imported toys and sports equipment from China. China's, quote, dominant position in toy making will be difficult to replicate in a way that meets U.S. product safety standards. So, like with everything else, the Trump team is still in the preparation stage before he takes office in January. So they're out trying to suppress the expectations for them to live up to all those populist promises that he made, while also crowding his cabinet full of multimillionaires and billionaires that have a horrible track record of giving a about regular Americans. So if things don't go as planned, not that there was much planning for these promises to be kept in the first place, but if they don't happen, they'll probably just blame it on the Democrats that are totally out of power, since that always works.
I won on two things, the border, and more than immigration. You know, they like to say immigration. I break it down more to the border, but I won on the border, and I won on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, you know, who uses the word? I started using the word. The groceries, when you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
I want to pause here because...
Yo, did y'all know that before Trump showed up, we didn't even have a word for food and household products that you buy from a store? I mean, up until Trump ran for president the third time, we didn't even have a term for grocery stores. So this is the kind of empty bluster that somehow convinced this many Americans to ignore all the obvious signs that he has no idea what he's talking about and doesn't even care to know. Oh, and speaking of that new word, groceries, that I hope I'm saying right, in his Person of the Year interview with Time magazine, when asked if the prices of groceries don't come down, will your presidency be a failure? And he said, I don't think so. Look, they got them up. I'd like to bring them down. It's hard to bring things down once they're up. You know, it's very hard, but I think that they will. I think that energy is going to bring them down. I think a better supply chain is going to bring them down. You know, the supply chain is still broken. It's broken. You see it. You go out to the docks and you see all these containers. And I own a property in California, in Palos Verdes. They're very nice. So he's gone from inventing the word groceries to lamenting how hard it would be to bring down the prices, only to hope that his declarations come true. From his nonsensical solution of drilling to complaints about the supply chain that he knows nothing about because he never cared.
We all know that prices went up during the pandemic when the supply chains shut down and failed. But our supply chains have now improved, and prices are still too high. A loaf of bread costs 50% more today than it did before the pandemic. Ground beef is up almost 50%. Many of the big food companies are seeing their highest profits in 2 decades. And while many grocery chains pass along these savings, others still aren't.